Hey, just to say thank you to everyone who has turned up for the briefing today by Creative Media Europe Ireland Desk. And thank you to Orla and Evan for being here to talk through the new application process and the new fund that has just been announced, actually, in the last, 4 weeks. We're really privileged to have you here to talk directly to the members about the changes that are there for the funding. And most important thing now, obviously, is to hand over to yourselves as you talk through a PowerPoint with everybody. And any questions, can you please put them in the Q&A function, and they will try and answer them as they go through the presentation. Cool. Is that all right, Orla?
Great stuff. Perfect.
Great stuff. Thanks so much.
Very much, Anthony. So hi, everybody. Just looking through the list here, and I think I know a lot of you, and you know Evelyn as well. So I'm Orla from the Creative Europe desk in Dublin, and Evelyn here is from the Creative Europe desk in Media desk in Media office in Galway. So what we're going to do today is go through briefly the new program. So the new Creative Europe program was launched a few weeks ago, and we're not going to go through the whole program because it's a monster. So we're just going to pick out the areas, the producer support funding schemes that are relevant to you guys. So I will just share my screen now, and hopefully it all works very simply. Here we go. Hope you can all see that now. Okay, so kicking off. So the Creative Europe scheme, or the Creative Europe program, it's 2.44 billion for this 7-year program. The last 7-year program from 2014 to 2020 was 1.46 billion. So there's a huge increase to this program. So there's a few, and as you can see, the actual division is the same. So media, like last time, 56%. The culture side is 36%, and cross-sectoral is 13%. So under Creative Europe now, because it's 2.4 billion, there's also more coming in under that umbrella. So not only are the funding schemes getting more funding for that, like, and the amounts are getting higher, but there's also new areas that we're going to be dealing with as well. So, hang on. Okay, so the main areas about the whole program to keep in mind is that it's aligned with the EU agenda of sustainability, greening of the industry, and diversity and inclusion and gender balance. So those two areas across all the funding schemes, there are they're not extra points, but they're actually in the award criteria. There are 5 points for each of these areas so you deal with it in your strategies. And according to how you deal with them, you would receive those 5 points, which is out of 100 points. I mean, that is definitely that's definitely a good way of getting those points that you will need to get yourself over the line. So and we'll go through these and how they relate to your actual schemes later on. So under the other major new area for us is that under the new Creative Europe program is news media. So it's a whole new sector that's coming in under us. So the first call for this is kicking off. It's launched already, and the deadline is the end of August, and it's journalism partnerships. So the idea of that is that there's going to be pan-European journalists partnerships to work on, to share best practices, share resources, whether it's business models or whether it's actual content. It's trying to, and the ultimate goal of this is to try and combat fake news, really at the end of the day, and it's to promote quality journalism. So that is a whole new area that we're going to be dealing with. So it'll be interesting how that will grow within the program over the next few years. There's also creative innovation labs as well, but that's a separate thing that we'll get into another day. So the Creative Europe media side, so it's 1.427 billion. It sounds loads, and it is a lot, but when you break it down into the individual schemes, the individual calls, the individual projects, it'll get eaten up fairly quickly. So still, as before, supports Europe's audiovisual and film sectors. For audiences, new distribution channels and strengthened audience development. Policy is promoting discussion and exchange, and then content, collaboration, innovation for high quality works, and then business side of it, boosting innovation, competitiveness, and talent. Do you want to fire ahead with the funding clusters there, Evelyn?
So on the media side of the program, they've broken it down into 3 different clusters. So the first one there is the audience cluster. So any of these schemes that are dealing directly with audiences, for example, the network of European cinemas, there's generally just one organisation that applies for that support and gets it, and that's Europa Cinemas. European festivals, film festivals, VOD networks and operators. Films on the Move is a new name for the old selective distribution scheme. Audience development and film education, and subtitling of cultural content. Then on the business cluster, it's to promote business innovation, competitiveness, scalability, to strengthen Europe's industry vis-a-vis global competitors. So the schemes there are fostering European media talents and skills, which is a new name for the training support scheme, markets and networking, European film distribution and sales, that's the old automatic scheme, which is now aimed at both distributors and sales agents, and innovative tools and business models. But the cluster we're going to focus on today is the content cluster. And as you can see, there's 4 different sections to it. There is European slate and mini slate, European co-development, video games and immersive content, and TV and online content. So the first thing to say on European slate and mini slate is Ireland is not eligible to apply for mini slate. The mini slate scheme is aimed only at low audiovisual capacity countries, and at the moment we're not classed as a low audiovisual capacity country. They're going to be doing a new study on this, so this may change in the lifetime of the programme. For the moment, we can only apply for the traditional slate funding. The European co-development is replacing the single project development scheme. The video games and immersive content, there will be no call for that this year. It'll be 2022 before there is a call for video games. And TV and online content is like the old TV programming scheme. So
yeah.
So
will I go or will you go, Evan? What do you think?
I keep going for a little while.
Okay.
So the European slate scheme is the idea behind it is to reduce risk, to invest in talent and creativity and support growth. So really trying to scale up the audiovisual industry. And the deadline for the slate funding scheme is 25th of August. Results expected in February 2022, a little over 15 million euro for the call, bearing in mind that the low capacity countries probably will not be applying. They can apply, but they may not. So, so that budget is really going to be mostly targeted at the other countries. The duration of projects, 36 months, 3 years. You can apply for an extension before the end of the period. If just, you have to justify your reasons why. And the objectives to foster the competitiveness of European independent production companies and increase their economic weight on the market, to increase the capacity of audiovisual producers to develop projects with the potential to circulate throughout Europe and beyond, to facilitate European and international co-production, and give a possibility to emerging talents to direct a short film supported by experienced companies.
Can I just say there that these objectives now for all the schemes are very, very important. Before the objectives were in all the calls, but now they are very much aligned with the application. You have to actually go back to the objectives, the main objectives of the call, and deal with that in your application. So you have to talk about how your project, whether it's slate or the TV and online content scheme or the co-development scheme, how that will help with these objectives. So just be very, very mindful of that. So the main changes for slate is, like Evan was saying, is the mini slate. Not for us, unfortunately. The other one is it's going from budget-based to fixed lump sums. So you're not going to be dealing with invoices anymore. You're not going to be dealing with receipts anymore. It's all about a creative report at the end, or actually throughout the lifetime of the grant. We'll go through that now, but it's fixed lump sums. You can't come up with your own budget anymore, and this is how much I want, up to like 200 grand what it used to be, but now they're actual fixed lump sums. So also the other major thing is that the minimum legal existence of 36 months is removed. So before, you would have to have a company registered on the CRO for 36 months, 3 years, before you would be eligible to apply for Slate. That's gone. So in theory, you could apply, set up your company tomorrow and apply. Once the people in the company, once the shareholders and CEO of the company have a producer credit and can hit that criteria, that track record criteria, you could actually apply. But that, I think that is significant, that the minimum legal existence is now gone. So you do now need 2 previous works required for Slate, but there's a larger pool of works to draw from. We'll go through that. The eligible works, same criteria, but estimated, is first day of principal photography is 10 months from the deadline. So again, that's longer now. So that the period of development will be longer before you can actually go into production. So the funded activities here, like before, it's animation, creative doc, or fiction projects with high creative value and cultural diversity, wide cross-border exploitation potential, and then intended for commercial exploitation. And then optional is the development and production activities of a short film by an emerging director. Now, you don't have to put it in, but like we've always said over the last number of years, we advise it. It looks good. And if you put it in and they don't accept it, then it doesn't actually affect the rest of your slate at all. It's not evaluated the same way as the other projects. It's purely there to incentivize companies to work with emerging talent. And they've also narrowed it down so that emerging talent now is an emerging director. And so you get an extra 10 grand for the development and production of a short film. So it is really good. Like if you have a member of staff there that is looking to get their feet wet and as a director, or this is a really good way again to help emerging talent, and it looks really good on your application if you're a company that can do that. So funded activities, they're encouraged to develop strategies for marketing distribution from the outset to improve audience reach potential. They want all of this, the marketing distribution at a much earlier stage than before, and you'll see that in the award criteria as well. They want to cooperate, companies to cooperate, including co-develop with operators from different media countries, strengthen their competitiveness by consolidating their investment capacity and development stage, expand their activities and innovation capacity to explore new fields and markets, and then develop adequate strategies to ensure a more sustainable and again, more environmentally respectful industry, and to ensure gender balance, inclusion, diversity, and representativeness. That's across all the schemes. So it's really something to be aware of when you're doing any of the applications. So the eligible participants, like before, independent European audiovisual production companies, it'll stay in your M&A that you are an audiovisual production company, and that's key. And then your recent experience in producing internationally distributed works, we'll go through that now. Only applications by single applicants. Again, like before, it's only one application per company a year. So you'll either go for the slate or you'll go for the co-development. You could be a minority in the co-development and go and apply for a slate, but if you're a lead partner in it, you can only apply once. Plus, if anybody here got awarded slate last year, congratulations, but you can't apply this year. So it's you can't apply within 12 months of signing that contract. Okay. So again, the eligible participants, once there's no majority control by an audiovisual media service provider, and you can see the majority control there. Once the main objective, like I said, activity is audiovisual production, and once it's established in one of media countries and owned directly or by majority participation by nationals from media countries. So just be aware that the shareholders need to be 50% from media countries. So UK UK shareholders can't fit in there anymore. If it's an Irish company, that it's still that 50% mark has to be hit. Do you want to go through this, Evan?
Yes, so I know Jeremiah has a question up there. This will answer it. So eligible participants, so companies that can demonstrate recent experience in producing internationally distributed work. So for Slate, it's different for Mini Slate, but for Slate, which is the only one we can apply for, you need to have produced and distributed 2 previous works since 2014. So that's any time in 2014 and onwards. And the previous, but they have made the conditions slightly easier. So the durations are less. So it's an animation, fiction, or documentary, either a one-off or a series of minimum 24 minutes. Now for VR, no minimum required. It needs to actually have been released in cinema, broadcast, or TV, or made available on digital platforms in at least 3 foreign countries before the deadline for submissions. So the distribution can happen at any time right up to the deadline. So it's produced since 2014, 2 projects produced since 2014 and distributed commercially in 3 foreign countries before the deadline. So all releases have to be of a commercial nature, so no screenings during festivals, they don't count. So when the companies have a choice here, they can either, and it can be, you can use 2 different options for the 2 different projects. So you have to demonstrate that the company was either the sole production company, or in the case of a co-production, the major co-producer in the finance plan, or the delegate producer. Or if your company doesn't have the track record for one of the projects or for both, you can use a personal on-screen credit as producer or delegate producer. It's only the CEO of the company or the shareholders that is relevant there. And so it has to be a producer credit, not executive producer, not co-producer, not associate producer. They accept delegate producer. That's a term more from the French industry. So really it has to be a producer or produced by credit. Now all this information you upload to the media database in the portal. We'll show you that later. And basically you're not actually providing the proof at this stage. You're just filling it in on this media database and you're downloading it, saving it as a PDF and attaching it to your application form. Okay, so what you can apply for. So a slate of minimum 3 and maximum 5 projects. So either an animation, a creative documentary, or fiction project. So it can be either one-off or series for commercial exploitation. So if it's for cinema, the projects have to be minimum 60 minutes. If it's for TV or a digital platform, 24 minutes for animation, 50 for documentary, and 90 minutes for fiction. And for interactive VR non-linear projects, there's no minimum. And as we said earlier, this new change that the first day of principal photography cannot begin until 10 months, at least 10 months after the deadline. So you can, as an option, you can include a short film, and the support is both for the development and the production of the short film, and there's a lump sum of €10,000 available. Now it has to be maximum 20 minutes, and if it's longer when you actually report on it, you don't get the money basically. They're very strict about the 20-minute rule. So they don't want short films that are actually previews or advertising films, pilots, trailers, teasers, or demos. It has to be a complete work in and of itself. They're now focusing on the director as emerging talent. In the previous calls, it could be any emerging talent, but now it has to be a director. So someone who's had some professional experience. So for example, somebody who had a short shown in a festival, but not commercially distributed. But who has not yet directed a project that would be eligible for support, seeking guidance and support towards making their first commercial audiovisual work. And the first day of principal photography has to be after the deadline. It's different for the short film because they're supporting the production as well. If the short film is considered ineligible, the rest of the application remains eligible if all the other conditions are fulfilled.
It really is an incentive to help companies just, to help emerging talent. So that's why.
And we should say about the short film, particularly in animation in the last program, I mean, 10,000 wasn't really a lot to produce and develop a short film. But the difference this time is you're not doing the financial reporting on it. So it shouldn't be as much of an issue.
So with the rights here, the applicant company must own, like before, the majority of the rights. Like I said, the duration is not more than 36 months, and you'll have to specify the time period in Part A and Part B of the application form. We're teasing you now with parts of the application form that we'll go through now shortly. So the ineligible projects are the eligible activities, same as before. As you can see there, like this hasn't changed in years, I don't think. Works of promotional nature, live recordings, TV game shows, video games. So if you have a slate, but you're sort of, you're looking at getting into video games, video game can't be part of your slate, but there will be, like Evelyn was saying, there will be a call specifically for video games, and that would be hopefully in spring next year, the deadline. It'll be announced towards the end of this year, and hopefully the deadline will be in spring next year. So the other conditions are financial capacity. You have to have financial capacity to implement the project. Now, we know that over the last couple of years that there was an issue with the financial capacity, and what happened was that companies who failed the calculation, the actual financial capacity, and showed they have a weak financial capacity, that they didn't get any pre-financing, that they had to show a bank guarantee, or they had to wait, spend a huge chunk of money, and then get the money at the end. And it was, it proved impossible for a lot of companies across Europe. So that stays there. The financial capacity stays there, and to show whether it's weak or strong. But what they're doing this time is that they will be giving, our understanding is that they will be giving a smaller amount of pre-financing for people who have, depending on how weak the financial capacity is, but they will be giving like a smaller, so instead of the 70% pre-financing, it could be, if you've got a weak finance, it could be 20% at the beginning. But we don't know this. We haven't had any indication of exactly what the figure is. But at least they are addressing it, and there'll be something there at the beginning to help companies and get started on their slate. So they did listen, and they did know that it was a serious issue. So the operational capacity as well, that you have to have the know-how, qualifications and resources to implement the project. I think, that's anybody who's done a slate before, that's what you show. You show that you can develop 3 to 5 projects at once, that you have the know-how, that you have the market knowledge, that you are going in new directions, that this is what you need funding for. And again, there's exclusion amongst others if the applicants misrepresent information. So if you say that the track record was, the track record project was distributed in a certain country and it wasn't, it doesn't look good. So just make sure that you have everything is bang on before you submit the information. So financing, how it's changed. So it's lump sum. So it's lump sum per project, depending on the genre, the type, and the production budget of the project. Sort of similar to the single project funding the last time, but now it's in slate. So the maximum EU grant is the sum of the lump sums. So we'll show that now in a sec. And then the lump sums, how they came up with these figures, it was based on the data of slate funding projects that were selected during the last programming period. They averaged them out, and this is how they came up with the specific figures. And then a pre-financial, if financial capacity is good, 70%. If it's not good, it'll be smaller. So the lump sum. So this is how it's working now. So for a one-off, for say animation, there you can see that there it's 55,000. For a one-off, for documentary, it's 30,000, and for fiction, depending on the budget, if it's under 5 million, it's 45,000, and if it's over 5 million, it's 60,000. That's your development, what they're going to give. For series, it's changed. For animation, it's 60,000, no matter what the production budget is. Same for documentary, but for fiction, because of the TV drama series impact, they have different figures depending on the production budget. So as you can see here, there's one here for over 20 million. So if anybody has a TV series of over 20 million here, you can apply for 100,000. So then so when you look at that, when you put them in, there's a lump sum calculator in an Excel sheet that's really simple. At least it's something that's really simple to use. And then once you put it in, you will get the final figure of what you're actually applying for. So the minimum you can apply for here. So just say you got 3 documentaries, 3 one-off documentaries, you could apply for 90,000. The maximum, if you've got 5 series over 20 million plus a short film, you could apply for 510,000. So that's they're the parameters this time. So it has changed. So you are looking at lump sums, which in the long run is easier, isn't it, Evelyn? It'll be easier. It will be easier in the long run once you get through the
the big change is you won't have to do any financial reporting, so that's going to make things easier. But setting up the reporting, we'll get to that later. There's a bit more involved.
There is
with work packages, but we'll get to that in a while. Okay, so the evaluation, it's very similar award criteria as in the past, but it's just organized differently with more concise wording, and it's aligned with the application. So if you look at the application form, the actual questions asked are actually aligned with all these award criteria. So it's very easy to look at these questions, see the amount of points going for them, and kind of self-assess them and see where you would score on those particular questions. So it's divided into relevance, 35 points, quality of content and activities, 30 points, 20 points for the project management, and 15 points for dissemination. Now, this is new as well, this new threshold. So you need to score 70 out of 100. So even if there isn't pressure on the budget and you score below 70 and there's extra money left over for the call, you won't be awarded. It could be that there is pressure on the budget and you could score 75 and not be selected. It really depends on the amount of projects and how they're assessed and what every other company scores, basically. So these new transversal priorities on greening and diversity, and there are particular points going for those in the award criteria, which we'll see in a minute. And for marketing, they're really now focusing on marketing at an early stage, and particularly to reach audiences at an early stage. So you need to have a strategy for that. So those points then are subdivided as follows. So on relevance, the added value of the proposed slate to improve the company's position on the European and international market in relation to its co-production approach, partnership with players from different countries, including from countries with a different production capacity, visibility at major film festivals and physical and online markets, capacity to increase the company's turnover, and capacity to increase the number, ambition, or size of projects in development. So it's all about scaling up. They want to see that if they award the funding, it's going to have an impact on the company and give it a stronger position on the European market. And what it says there about partnerships with players from different countries, what they're trying to do in this and both the TV call is to try and get countries to co-produce and work and have projects financed with countries that they wouldn't normally work with. So to, the countries that are usually work together, like Austria, Germany, because they have the same language, or the French-speaking countries, Switzerland, Belgium, and France, to try and go out of those usual co-production and co-financing arrangements and work with countries that you haven't worked with before, that are not near neighbours and who speak a different language. Because the UK has gone from Creative Europe, it's something we have to do anyway.
And I think that one of the most important, and it's something that we've been saying for years, but it was never really laid out in the award criteria, is that you really have to show how your how the projects that you're picking are going to help grow your company, and how the projects that you are picking, so the actual projects you're picking are very important to show how you're going to hit the objectives primarily, and then also how it's going to help grow the company to a sustain, whether it's reaching new markets with a particular new genre, new topic, or a new subject that you want to go into, a TV drama where you never did before. So it's all about growing the company, how the projects that you pick.
Okay.
So again, it's the
sorry, before you go ahead there, we have a question in the Q&A, so may as well answer it now, about creative documentaries and how they're defined. So creative documentaries are considered documentaries which have a distinctive author's voice or director's voice. They're not very purely factual programming with lots of talking heads and like current affairs. They're not current affairs programming. The best way to probably describe it is the kind of documentaries that you might see at film festivals that would attract people to go and see them in the cinema at festivals. Does it include multi-episodic series? The durations apply to the entire series. So you can have you can have short episodic, as long as they're a complete series in and of themselves. And is a documentary's ability to return year on year, does it help or hinder applications? Need to know more about that, really. Obviously, it can't be the same documentary. It has to be original. They want to support original artistic projects. So I think we would need more information on that. So drop us an email. And
something else that they have done, like you can apply for second series. You can apply for subsequent series. Before you couldn't. There was very limited what you could apply for. But if you are applying for a second or a subsequent series, you have to be very specific about how it is different from the first series. So whether it is like, if it's a documentary, if it's a new location or a new a new topic, that there is a good difference that you need the funding for. But yeah, but second and subsequent are eligible. There's also another question. Questions are flying in. So, is there any chance of them revising the new 3 requirements that threaten the viability of creative, 8 months to 10 months, co-applying at least 3 countries rather than 1 previously, and the drop in co-financing from 20% to 15%? Now, I think you're talking about the TV content, which we're going to go into now. I'm conscious of time, so we'll fly ahead into that. I think the 8 months to 10 months, I think that's going to stay. I think initially at the beginning of the last program, they wanted 12 months. And so they did push it back to 8 months, but I would say that 10 months is going to stay, unfortunately. And then at least three countries. Again, I think it's here. I think it's here for good. I think what they see is there are development, and this is part of the reason why the development scheme has changed as well. The single project development scheme is that there are now development funding calls in every country now in media. So those funding calls are there. So they want to have the extra added value. So they are looking at the bigger projects. They are looking at projects that wouldn't necessarily have been funded under national rules. And for smaller companies, again, they feel like the domestic funders should be funding them to a point. So these are sort of complementary funding calls.
Just another point on the 10 months there for creative documentaries. Any preliminary filming you're doing is still part of the development. So you can be working away on a documentary within those 10 months and doing some initial filming, wrecking, and even some filming that you use in the final shoot. But so just to be aware of that, it isn't maybe as closed off as you might think.
And I think the next question here, and then we'll fly on, are companies encouraged or even allowed to co-produce with partners in Ireland as well as other countries? Yes. New companies that would not be eligible to apply due to lack of track record working with other Irish companies, that's fine. But also perhaps other European partners. The company that's applying has to have that track record. criteria ticked. So if you don't have that, you can work with another company, but then the company would be the lead producer. If you do have the track record but you don't feel like you have the experience in the certain genre, you can co-produce with another company because it looks good that you're aware of your weaknesses and you're bringing in strengths. But then you would have to show across all of this that you need to have a pan-European strategies, that you're that whether it's distribution or marketing or that you are very conscious of the audience across Europe. So it's finding that balance, I think.
And another point on that is that the applicant company needs to have the majority of the rights. So now it can be a 50-50 split in the case of two companies co-producing together, but you need to work out if that's what you want to do. Do you want to assign your rights over?
It is a slate. Co-development's different. But anyway, so we're going back to the reward criteria. So again, you'll see the 5 points for the sustainability and 5 points for the diversity. We'll just fly through this. The quality of the content, activities, 30 points. The potential to reach audiences, you have to show why your project will actually, cross borders. I mean, it's Creative Europe. I mean, that's what we do. That's our remit. So you have to show that. And international is fine as well, but you do have to have a very strong European strategy. The project management here, you can see it's 20 points. And it includes the development strategy and the financing strategy of the projects, but also this is really where you show that the management of the project as a whole, the whole entire slate, which is important. Now, marketing strategy is only 5 points. They have pulled away from that because, and I know in the last few years they had upped it because they felt it was very important, but then a lot of the marketing strategies going in never actually happened, or they were just put in for the application because it's too early to see how you're going to market it way down the line. It's good to have an idea, but it was still too early for detailed ones. So they're aware of that, so they've pushed that back to 5 points, and they want it at an earlier stage. They want the market, they want you to show your marketing at an earlier stage in development and how you're going to reach audience at an earlier stage. The distribution now is 10 points. So they've sort of tweaked and moved around the weight of the points. How to apply. So how to apply. Okay, it is a new system. We will bring up the application at the end and we'll fly through it. We will be doing a more technical workshop within the next week, 10 days. So if you are applying, because we know it's quite daunting, if you are applying, please let us know. So specifically for Slate and TV, so we can actually, that you can be involved in this technical workshop, and we will spend time screen share. It's the great thing about screen share, and go through the application question by question. And if anybody has any questions, because I think that is going to be very important, because it's such a new interface really for us all. So there's a part A, which is administrative information, part B, which is technical description, part C, which is data. It's not as scary as it looks. Then it's PDF about the film like before. You put in your artistic material, and then there's mandatory annexes like before. Again, we'll show you that later. So the mandatory annexes, the lump sum calculator, the creative dossier projects, and that's what they call it now. Creative dossier now is the term that they're using for the artistic material. The proof of ownerships, still very important. Supporting documents, they still want to see those letters from distributors across Europe that they know, that your project is going to hit those audience outside of your country. And then the declaration of owner and control, that is the shareholding now. So before, it was a little paragraph in the application where you put in the shareholders and what country they're from, but now it's a separate standalone sheet which you have to fill in. So there's more emphasis on that now, so that the 50% is from media countries. So just be aware of that. Then it's work packages. Now we will go through the work packages. It's quite changed. Evelyn, do you want to go through the work packages? So you can talk about it.
So basically, it's a completely different application system and a reporting system. So the good news about it is you don't have to do any financial reporting anymore. You don't have to pay an auditor to sign off on your final financial report. So that's the good news. So instead of financial reporting, you're reporting on outputs and the actual work that you've undertaken during the 3 years that you're developing the projects in the slate. And so in the application, you have to put these into a system that's then going to be translated into a grant agreement on the portal, which you will be uploading material to report on. So for Slate, it's simple. There's one work package per project. So for every project, you fill out a work package and you're saying what all the tasks are. So for example, one task could be script writing and script editing. Another could be attending markets and meeting financiers to raise the production budget. Another task could be doing archive research or documentary research, whatever it is. So the usual things you're doing in the development period, you break them down into tasks. So the tasks can be quite specific, but then you also have to state what the deliverables are for the tasks. And what we would advise is be specific on the tasks, but be quite vague on the deliverables, because the deliverables are what gets you that final 30% of the funding. If your financial capacity is good, you'll get 70% on signature of contract, and the final 30% is based on outcomes. And so if you have a task that's all about script writing and script editing, the deliverable can just be updated creative or updated artistic material. So you're not saying, so instead of saying draft 3 of a script, which you might not, something might happen and the draft 3 might never be completed. And then, you can't deliver on it. It's better to say something like updated artistic material. So it's very easy to update and change some elements in your artistic material. So update on research undertaking and visual material, that's more for documentary. Update on key artistic crew and casting. Updated financing and production budgets and schedule. Updated distribution and marketing strategies, and link to the final work if produced. So things that are easily updated, you upload them then to the portal, and once they're delivered and approved at the end of the period, well then that releases the final tranche of funding. So just another thing, you put due dates beside each of these deliverables. So we would suggest putting month 36, it's all done in months. So, putting month 36, there isn't really any advantage to putting an earlier due date, because you're not going to get the final monies any sooner, unless we're in a situation where you don't get all the pre-financing. But you could look at that again. The other thing you can do, provided the due date hasn't gone, you can also update your deliverables and due dates in the system. So as long as, the important thing is to deliver all these things when you say you will deliver them. You can change all of that provided the date hasn't gone. So that's why it's probably easier to keep the same due date for every project. Yeah. Another thing to say about this is that these work packages come from big projects. I think it was originally used for Horizon 2020, which is big capital infrastructure projects, which doesn't make sense when you're applying for, one project for 55 or 60,000. So we would advise not putting in any milestones. There's a section where they ask you to put in milestones, but that's for big complex projects. So it's better not to put in any milestones and just put in tasks that relate to the development and keep the deliverables quite simple and easily updatable.
Yeah, and keep it quite simple. Like, you're not going to put in anything that is not going to be easy for you to get. Like, if you know that you are going, you will have an update on the research work taken, or, you know, a more developed script, or, you know, you will have updated artistic materials. So put that in. So we're not like, it's not asking you to do anything that is brand new. It's just pick out the things that you know that you will have at the end of this. And if it changes, you know, it's development and it does change. So that's why Evelyn was saying just do updated artistic material. If it's not completed, then that's, you know, that won't matter then, because you're literally saying updated. Like, it is key. Like, the work packages are so brand new to us, but if you think of it like it's a project management tool, really. So, and if you look at the old style of the budget, the way it was one sheet per project, and it had the headings, the budget lines. Sort of take that and adapt it, because the right headings are there for the project. You make it align to your specific project. But then instead of the receipts and the invoices of spending that money on the budget line, they want to show the actual task. So it's similar, but it's sort of a different mindset of thinking. It's just taking out the financial and replacing it with a creative, basically, if you can think of it like that way.
Okay, David has a question there about have media program confirmed that they'll be happy with just 36-month deliverables. It's entirely up to the applicant what due dates they put in. And I suppose a caveat to all of this is, if you are writing up a financing strategy that's saying you're going into production in early 2023, well, then a due date of 36 months doesn't make sense, probably. Because once you go into production, the development period is over. So we're just saying, you know, try and keep your due dates and for your deliverables, you know, as easily maintained as possible, so that you don't get into trouble and miss a due date and then lose your 30% of the funding. But
and you can't change it. Like, there is a system,
yes.
like it's called the AGA. And we haven't seen it yet. Van Brussels, like, they're still working on, they're still finalizing it. It's going to be open in September. And the idea that this is going to be your tool where you will put in these updated material, and that you can change and tweak certain things, and it's an amendment, and your project officer will see it and they can approve it. So that's how it's going to work. It's reporting along, you know, as you go on. So you know, if you have them all for 36 months, that mightn't be useful for you guys. Like, if you know definitely you're going to have this when produced in 2 years, put that in, you know. But and it's development, so
you keep an eye on it.
Can't change it. You just keep an eye on it. Yeah. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so it's 10 to 12 already. Okay, flying through. Sorry, we're going to be a bit over, if that's okay with everybody. So we'll just fly through the co-development. Now, co-development has replaced the single project funding. Called the single project funding, called is no more. So the co-development now is taken over that spot, I suppose. And the idea of it is that there is, like I said before, that there is development funding in each of the countries. So this is a complementary funding where they're trying to incentivize, not force, incentivize companies to work together across Europe. So the deadline for this isn't until November. So there's no point in worrying about this right now. So if you are thinking about going for slate, I'd go for slate. If you really can't apply for slate, if you don't have those projects, you might want to wait till co-development. You can't apply for both, but you might be the lead partner in both. But we will be doing a lot more on co-development in September. So the results for this won't be until May. It's only €5 million, and then the duration of the project is 30 months. Like I said, the objectives here is support the cooperation between European production companies and development of a single project, again, along the same lines as the slate projects. The difference is it has to be co-developed by minimum 2 European independent audiovisual companies from 2 different countries. It's not written there. But you have to have signed a co-development agreement with the division of the tasks. There's no template on this. So, but they have, in the call documents, they have advised what needs to go into the co-development agreement. So it must detail how you will collaborate on the joint development of creative aspects and storytelling, the distribution and roles and responsibilities within the project, division of tasks, all that. And there's no template. And then this is a mandatory deliverable So it must be updated by the end as a deliverable. So that's how the co-development agreement will work. Again, we'll be going through all this in a lot more detail in September. They're encouraged to develop strong and innovative collaborations at creative and financing levels, develop strategies for marketing and distribution, and then again with the sustainability and diversity strategies as well. For this, similar 60 minutes for cinema, all the same length of durations here, and again it's the 10 months after the deadline is the first day of principle. The eligible activities, you must own the majority of the rights. Now, this is where this could help a company that don't have the track record that's required for this. So if the second company, not the lead partner, so one company has to apply, and that company has to have the track record, which I'll go through now in a second, that criteria box ticked. The other company can have the rights to the project. So they could have the project and go to the company with the track record and go, hey, do you want to work with us on this? But we'll hold on to the rights. So that is allowed. And then the amount of this that you can get is 60,000 per partner, and up to, again, TV series, it's 100 grand per partner. So in theory, you could be applying for, say you've got two partners on a project, 60 grand. So you could be applying for 120,000, but that would mean, because of the max 50% co-financing rate, that would mean that your total budget would have to be at least, my maths, 240,000, which is a lot for development, right? But in theory, that's what you can do. The co-financing rate isn't an issue anymore for Slate. We didn't say that, Evelyn, did we? No. It's not an issue anymore because of the lump sum. But if you can't just apply for the actual lump sum, you can't put in a development budget for 50,000, and that's what the lump sum is for a project. They want to see that there is, because you won't score very well, and they want to see that there is other interest involved, that other people, that they're not first to jump, that there are people interested in this, that there are organizations, or broadcasters, or film funds, or MGs. There's something there to strengthen your application. But that co-financing rate is more for Slate.
Yeah, so this is a different system to Slate, because it's a customized lump sum. So that means you can choose the amount. It's important to say maybe that the partners don't need to apply for the same amount. So you could be working with a company in another country that's going to do something very specific for you, and they would be taking much less of the money, and the majority of the work would be done by your company. The important thing, though, is that the companies have to collaborate on creative aspects. So it can't be just that you have a company in another country who's going to raise some finance for you there. There needs to be some real creative work being done by the partner company. And while the deadline isn't until November, I think if you're thinking of going for the scheme, now is the time to be identifying partners, discussing possible projects with them, and figuring out how you would divide up the tasks to be ready to sign a co-development agreement.
Now I see Jeremiah's question here. Although ineligible to benefit from both, can we hedge bets, apply for both and wait for results? No. Because if you apply for Slate, and if you go in as lead partner for the co-development, your application will immediately be ineligible because you've already applied for Slate. So that's one thing. But you could go in as a minority, like a partner in a co-development project, and that's fine, and have already applied for Slate. So that's all right, but you just can't go in for lead partners for both. So the evaluation for co-development, it's similar, but you'll see project management here is 25 points, because again, it's about the roles and responsibilities of partnerships and how that's working. The quality content is actually a bit lower, it's 20 points, and the relevance is 40 points. So you can see it's slightly tweaked. And again, we've got the overall quality threshold there of 70 out of 100. Mandatory annex, all the same as before, but the co-development agreement has to be there. And again, you've got the supporting documents, co-production, ownership of rights, etc.
And there is actually a budget, unlike Slate. There is a budget that you fill out.
Yeah. And then there's deliverables there. And then you identify deliverables per partner. So depending on the tasks, and there is a bit more work in advance for this as well. Okay, so that's co-development. Sorry if I'm flying through this now. We got the TV and online content now, which is before it was the TV programming scheme. I think before that it was TV broadcasting. So basically it's TV production. That's what this is. They never call it TV production, but that's what this is. So the deadline for this is 25th of August. You find out in February, and the budget is 17.6 million. So that is higher than before. Like the budget rates are actually higher than before, and hopefully it'll continue that like that throughout the program. So the duration of the project, 24 months or 36 months for series more than 2 episodes. Again, the objectives, very important. It's to increase the capacity of producers to develop and produce strong projects with a significant potential to circulate. I mean, that's the remit of all our funding calls. We facilitate European and international co-productions within the TV and online sector. You don't have to have a co-production, but if you will see, so much for summer holidays, yes. Jeremiah, yes, I agree. If you can take your laptop onto the beach, that's what you'll be doing with this summer. And this is the deadlines are there purely because of the delay over the last while, because it's and it's not going to be like this in future years. God, I hope not. No, it's not. It's just because of the delay. So I was saying that you don't have to have a co-production in place, but there are specific award criteria in there for how your co-production is working. So if you don't have a co-production in TV, you will immediately lose those points. So again, it does help if you have, like, it's not mandatory, but it does help if you have if you are a co-production. If this project that you're applying for is a co-production. The aims, the funded activities, strengthen the independence, enhance collaboration, support the production of high quality works. Again, you can see throughout all the calls, similar. Again, independent European audiovisual companies. The duration, the minimum duration, 90 minutes, animation for 24 minutes, and that can be single hour series and creative doc as well. It can be a single hour series for TV, and it's primarily for TV or online. So it's broadcasters and streamers are considered equal in these schemes. So the works designed to be a series must be a series. The first day of principal photography, because of the delay, if you went into production on the 4th of June, and you can apply for this fund. It'll be difficult for you because you're not going to find out until February, but you could in theory do that, as long as you're not complete, as long as it's not signed off and handed to the broadcasters before February. And once it's produced with the significant participation of professionals who are nationals. Now, this is where our residents of media countries. Now, this is how they've narrowed it out now. They've laid it out. They've identified fiction, documentary, and animation. So you have to have significant, which is like 50%. So for, say, fiction, you have to have like 10 of those points have to be from media countries. So again, just be wary of your UK crew. But if they're residents here, that's okay in terms of this. But again, it's just one of those things now. Brexit is affecting each of the schemes differently. The involvement, now this has changed, it's minimum 2 broadcasters from 2 media countries, whereas before it was 3. And beforehand, you used to have like 8 or 9 or 10 letters of interest from broadcasters across Europe to be in with a shot for funding. They've gotten rid of all of that. They don't want that. I think the broadcasters were getting quite peeved at the fact that, you know, people were just turning up looking for letters, and it just wasn't working. So they don't want any LOIs anymore. They just want the actual letters of commitment. And they only want 2 broadcasters from 2 different countries. So again, they're looking for audience reach, but then they're looking for geographic diversity as well. And I think that because it's only 2, because they're looking for less, they want a very, very strong distribution strategy as well. So, so if you don't have your 8, 9, 10 broadcasters, they do want to see what your distribution strategy is and who your distributor is. So the other way that's changed is you have to have, whereas before it was 50% of financing guaranteed from third-party sources, now you only need 40% of the total budget guaranteed. So that's changed, so that's okay. Section 481 is not part of that 40%. So immediately when you're thinking, oh, I've hit that already because we'll have Section 481, it's not included in that 40% because you will not be able to show confirmed funding of that when you're applying for this. So get that out of your head. It does in the guidelines, it said may be acceptable, but it's not. We haven't seen one that has been acceptable in many years. The other thing that has changed, actually it hasn't changed, but the world has changed. So this clause here, the minimum 50% of total estimated financing must come from media countries. That has been the same clause in this call for years. The difference now is that the UK is not a media country. And so that will change. I know for animation, it will cause a lot of difficulties because Warner Brothers headquarters are based in London, Disney are based in London, Nick are based in London. And so when you're contracting with them, your contracts are going to be from a media country, or from the UK, not from a media country. So they won't be able to be part of that 50%. So that's where it could get difficult. So be very, very aware of who you're signing with and where that financing is coming from. And I know it's going to be difficult for a lot of our producers. Again, I know somebody mentioned earlier on about that they've changed the co-financing rate. It's 15% now. It used for documentary, it used to be 20% of the total budget max, and for 12% for fiction. They've changed that now. They've just made it a flat 15% co-financing rate for all genres. The maximum grants 300 for doc, 500 for animation. And again, because of the TV drama, there is an option there where you can apply for 2 million. So it'll be interesting to see. We don't know if the big projects are going to come in and gobble up all the money. We don't think so, because there was an option to apply for 1 million over the last few years, and it was only 1 or 2 per call. Like, I don't think it actually, but again, things might change, but hopefully there should still be a balance across all genres, that TV drama won't suck up all the money.
So just to overall say, with the TV scheme, what they're trying to do is kind of come in earlier on projects. So that's why they've lowered the number of broadcasters required, but they want the binding letters of commitments or even contracts for them. And they reduced the financing, the confirmed financing, to 40%. So they're happy to come in at an earlier stage than previously.
You can see here the evaluation. Again, we're not going to go through it in detail, but you can see the relevance is 30 points. The quality of content activity is 35. Project management is only 5 points, because at this stage, you're going into production, so there's not as much managing other partners for the application as such. So and dissemination then is 30 points, because the distribution strategy is very, very key to this scheme. Again, mandatory annexes. We have the production financing structure, creative presentation of the project, confirmed sources of finance, other letters of intent relating to distribution of finance and strategies, declaration of ownership. We will send you on this presentation. Work packages. So for work packages, TV, it's changed. So it's different from the others. So project management would be work package 1, pre-production, work package 2, work package 3 is production, and post-production is work package 4. So as you can see, like, there are in all of the call documents, which is the closest thing we have now to guidelines, there are very strong recommendations on how you structure your work packages. There's also a recommendation across in every call. It's like, don't worry about the milestones. You don't need milestones, because it makes everybody's life harder. Your life harder, Brussels' life's harder. So don't worry about the milestones. So there are recommendations in the call documents, if you read through it, about how you should structure these and what would be recommended for the call that you have. And there's the deliverables here. So declaration on first day of principle, declaration of end of shooting. So these are stuff that you will have anyway. Your interoperable standard identifier, your ISAN. So it's I think the key thing is that the deliverable, make sure that deliverable, think about the deliverables and what you will have anyway at the end of your projects. Because then these can be, it'll be much easier to deal with when you're uploading. So that is us. Now, Anthony, I don't know if we have time to go through. I was going to just bring up the application, if that's all right.
Oh, sorry, I'm over here. I would, to be honest. I think
if everybody
everyone
is
stuck with this long. How long would it be, Orla?
10 minutes, I'd say.
Do it.
No, this is the quick. This is the okay.
I think everyone would appreciate it, especially given the complexities and changes.
Yeah, it is. And again, we will be working, we will be doing a webinar because we realize how difficult, challenging, new it is. So we will be doing very specific, and we'll probably do more than one. That's a great thing about this, that we can do Zooms like this, instead of having to hire out the IFI and do it on a big screen, that we can do this and actually work through it in detail.
Why did it take 10 minutes to go through it, and we can finish up then about 12?
Yeah, if that
right?
works. Yeah,
I think so. In fairness, the attendees are staying strong.
They are. We haven't scared.
Yeah, admire that. Fair play to you all.
Not many questions though, but no, there's been a few. And again, you can myself and Evelyn are here. That's why we're here. We're not necessarily in our offices at the moment, but we're here to answer any questions that you have on any of this, because we understand how difficult the new system is, especially. So I'm literally going to do this from the beginning. So we're on Google, right? And how to get through, so bear with me a sec, it's funding and tenders portal. Now, anybody who is, sorry about this, some of you might be familiar with this already, but for those of you who aren't, this is what it looks like. Okay. And every, like if you go down here, like it's the first page you hit, all of these programs from European Defence Fund and the European Maritime Fisheries and Agriculture Fund, they all go through this. So Creative Europe, the program has finally been sucked in, and we are now on par with the rest of the programs. It's a European Commission program, so that's where this has started. So if you click into Creative Europe, you'll see here, find calls, it's 21 calls. Right, so you see them all here, and these are all open for submission. And there's culture calls here as well, the European Cooperation Projects are. So these are all the calls that are there for Creative Europe. Yeah, if we go down to the bottom, we got, oh yeah, that's code development for Slate. See, and it changed.
Just here, lost it again.
There we go. Okay, European Slate. All right, so you see all the information here, your objectives. All here, you see the deadline date. Here you got the call document, this tiny little thing here. These are your guidelines, right, on paper that you can print out in a PDF. So with all the recommendations, so print that out here. And then you can go, and that shows you more here. Right, so it shows you what you want, and they understand. Brussels understand this. It's completely new, so they are trying to do anything to help. So you click and start submission, right, and your selection. Okay, so hang on, excuse me, and of course you get this. So. Will that work? Yes. So you log in. If you don't have an EU login, it's very simple to do, but you have to have an EU login to do this. Right, so you pick your pick there. Again, your pick is for the company number, basically, in the system. That, again, a lot of you would be familiar with. You start here, you create, I'll just do test. The summary here, the short summary here is this here is what will be, this could be made public. So just be wary what you put in there. I wouldn't put the names of all the projects in. I would just literally go your company slate, save and go next. And that is how you start. Yep, it's simple, you know. It is. Okay, so you continue with the proposal. Now, so you're in here. So just to go, we'll save and go to the next. Now, this page, you're going to get very familiar with this page. So, as you can see here, they want you to upload most of it. If not, yeah, around 90% of your application is going to be uploaded. But there are the templates there. So if you go into edit forms, I'll click on that. So edit forms is actually form A. When you see part A in an application, that's where that is. It's in that edit forms. Why they couldn't call it part A, I don't know, but it's there. Right, so this is general information, your participants and your budget. Right, so it's, again, pretty simple. Probably the first part of the application last time.
Yeah, so about Form A, some of the information is already there, pre-populated from the portal, but there's other information you need to put in, such as the duration of the project and the language and so on.
So the media DB is the media database. So this is how you will put in your track record projects and the projects that you're applying for, right? So this is, here we go, previous experience. So I'm going to add one. So this is how you put the year, copyright, your audience synopsis, start date of principal photography, production role structure, total budget. Countries of distribution, right? So this is where you will add in company name, role, the countries, and the broadcast date. So this is how you add in those projects. And when you save as draft, right, you can submit it, but you can save it as draft. You can go back in. You don't have to do all these at once. You can go back in and keep editing it. So then these are the development for a grant requests. So you add in your project there. These are the names of the projects that you're going to put in. This is the basic information. Again, it's like the first quarter of the last application form. And there's your short work. Right. And at the end of all this, you save it, you download it as a PDF. And when you download it as a PDF, you go back here and you upload it here. Why you all couldn't go into the same system, I don't know. But so you upload it specifically to here. So that's the media database. Edit part C is it said, what was it, KPI data and indicators that those were, yeah, and it's but it's very straightforward. Like one of the questions is, did you talk to us? I mean, that's one of the questions. Then it's number of permanent staff, turnover, the company's activity mentioned in the M&A. Again, all stuff that was in the last application is just in a different spot. So for there's creative dossier, and if you go into any of these, the creative dossier, mandatory, it can be 10 megabytes. All of these can be 10 megabytes now, each of these. So before, the entire application could be 10 megabytes, but now each individual one could be 10 megabytes. Downloads part B. Okay, over here on the left, you see download part B. Now, okay, so it's up here. As I open this, I'm just gonna have to share, so bear with me. So when you open, in that folder is this. So you've got the application form, you've got the calculator, the creative dossier, and then this is the template info on independence and ownership control. So if we go into the template and we'll open it with, it comes as a text file, so you can open it with Microsoft Word.
Just to say about the application form part B there, that it can't be any longer than 70 pages. If it's longer than 70 pages, those pages disappear and won't be seen by evaluators. But it shouldn't be an issue because all your artistic material is going into another document,
into a separate
dossier, so,
which can be 10 megabytes. And the creative dossier, I won't show it here because it's literally like, you know, it's you fill it out yourself. It's it shows what you need to put in there, but it's just a very basic Word document. Put all your information on this project in here. So that's what that is. Now this is the application form, and this is very different to before. In the application form, sorry, now I'll try and make that a little bigger. Ooh. You will see that there are questions for all the schemes. Can you see that? So here we have background general objectives 4, and they're listing off all the calls. So you will be using the same application. A lot of people will be using exactly the same application form, but you have to find the right question for you. So what they have said is that you can delete the other questions. Just be so careful that you don't delete the wrong one, because you might actually miss one. So just be extra careful that you don't, that you do answer all the questions. So there's a bit of trawl in here and a bit of going back and forth. Get somebody else to go through it too, and just make sure. And you can see the questions here. A lot of the questions are similar to the last time. So once you actually get into this, it should be okay. Now it says insert text. There's no character count anymore here because the character count is the overall. It's 70 pages now. So there's no character count. So it's up to you to figure out how much you should put in for each. Those guidelines, I know that was helpful before. If it said 4,000 characters, like, okay, that's how much I want. That's not there anymore, but it's up to you to figure that one out. So these are all there's environment sustainability. You got the gender balance question. You got the quality format. Again, all very aligned with the award criteria. So you can see when you fill out a box, it's like, okay, well, that's 10 points. I'm pretty happy with that one. So it's much easier to track your own, how you're doing. Cost of it, there's a risk management element too. I'll let you look at that. There's project management here, project teams, development strategy, financing strategy, dissemination, all like before. And again, but what they're doing now is, before you had it one project and all the questions, project 2 and all the questions, project 3 and all the questions. You have to answer for all of the projects in here. So I'd recommend that you go, you know, that whatever you pick as project 1 is always going to be project 1 in all the questions and in the creative dossier. So make sure you have, whether it's alphabetical order, whatever way you want to do it, but try and keep them in the same order, because it'll make it a lot easier for you and for the evaluators. You don't want to annoy the evaluators. Make it as easy as possible for them, because it's going to be all new to them as well. So so just be aware of that. And I'm just going to fly down here to the work packages. Now this is how the work pack, right? So you got a brief description of the overall structure of the work packages. Again, you've been told what way to do it in the call document. You've been advised. So this is what the work packages look like. Okay, so short name, lead beneficiary, which is your company. Duration, month 1 to month 36. So it's months now. And this is how your activities, so your task. So your task could be script writing, description, you know, your task could be, oh man, it could be travel to markets, meeting financiers, and then your description of it, the name, and whether it's subcontracted or not. So like scriptwriter would be subcontracted, but any work that you're doing wouldn't be. Again, it's just stick. So here are your deliverables. So you got to ignore the milestones. Don't go near the milestones. Deliverable number 1 here, the type. Again, it looks awful, but it's, you can see here, it's just reports. So just delete them and it's for, so just be aware that that it is there. And if you just read the instructions, and it'll show you how to do it. It'll show you what each of those codes mean. So, and you can just add rows. The estimated budget isn't eligible for you, or isn't, it's not for you guys at all, because it's not for TV, it's not for Slate, it's not for co-development, so you can ignore that. And then there's a few other boxes there. Again, depends, there's a timetable, and it's just going month. So that's the big thing. I won't go back into the actually I'll stop sharing that. But that's the application itself, and you can save it as, you save it and edit it as you're going along. It's not as daunting once you get into it. It's very daunting looking at it, but once you actually get into it and figure out the bits that you need to answer, it's not that bad, I promise. So again, if you have any questions, please fire an email to myself or Evelyn. We're both still working from home, so we're both doing things remotely still. So it'll be Zoom meetings or whatever. You can you can show us your application and share the screen, which is great. And then the one thing that we do ask, though, that if you are applying, please let us know. And they also recommend that you don't apply on the very last day. And I know we've always said that, but now, please, because of the new system, that at least give yourself at least 2 days before. And the good thing about this, sorry, Anthony, I know you're waiting there. The good thing about it now is that you can submit it. If you're happy enough, generally happy enough with it, you can submit it, and you can still go back in and edit it. It's not a problem at all. So you can still change it right up until the last minute, but at least it's in. So submit it a few days before, and then you can tweak it, and then you can add in something else right up to the deadline. There you go. So there.
Thank you both so much for that hugely informative hour and 20 minutes. As Anne and Owen just said there in the Q&A, a lot to take in, but thank you so much for taking the time to do it with us. And I know everyone really appreciates the time given. And you said something, Orla, about a technical webinar soon. When's that on?
Yes. Again, we're looking at it. I don't have a time yet. Probably over the next week, next week or 10 days. But it's specifically for people who are applying this time. So if you can, just let us know, and then we will contact you directly, because it'll be easier then if we only have like a certain amount of companies. But we will be doing more as it goes on.
Letting us know that date, and we could do an email to the members specifically saying only if you're applying this time, and maybe try and get as many involved as possible.
Exactly, because I think please let us know if you're applying, because I know we both have holidays booked. That's time away. We are both taking time away, and I just think it's very important that we don't want to miss anybody, and we just want to make sure that everybody is okay with the application. And please let us know if you're applying.
More for the August deadlines,
specifically for the audits.
Co-development one, but more for Slate and TV.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Perfect. Well, listen, Orla, thank you both so much for the time you've taken today to talk everyone through the new process and going through the application form as well. Look, it was really informative and great for everyone to be clearer on what's expected going forward. Because this is a 7-year program, right?
Yes.
So we get to grips with it now. You'll be grounded 6 years.
Exactly. Then it'll change again.
Then it'll change it again. Yeah. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day. And I'm sure everyone who can say it will say thank you too.
Yeah, lovely. That's great.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, many guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.